Hi, so today we will talk about iron absorption. We will talk about iron deficiency, iron toxicity, sources of heme iron, and sources of non-heme iron, absorption enhancers and inhibitors of iron. So at the end of this video, hopefully you will know everything you need to know about iron. So these are my sources. I will put all the links under this video if you want to check them out. So what is iron? Iron is a major component of hemoglobin, a type of protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen from your lungs to all parts of the body. Without enough iron, there aren't enough red blood cells to transport oxygen. So this is the most important part to understand about iron, to understand about the role of iron in our body. Iron is mostly important for oxygen transportation. Iron is an essential element for almost all living organisms. It forms the core of molecules such as hemoglobin, myoglobin, cytochromes, and nitric oxide synthase, as well as in multiple enzymes required for the generation of ATP in all cells. So, regarding the amount of iron in the body, the average adult stores about 1 to 4 grams of iron. There's about 2 grams of iron in men and 1.5 grams in women. And about 1 milligram of iron is lost each day. And for women who menstruate, it's about 2 milligrams per day. So the food intake. Average dietary intakes are 15 to 20 milligrams per day on a balanced diet. Humans have relatively low daily iron requirement. It's about 10% of the iron entering the duodenum that is absorbed. So something to understand also about iron is that in case of infection, if you have a bacterial infection, your body will choose to store most of the iron in the cells of your small intestines and not to let the iron circulate in your body because bacteria feed of iron in your blood. So this is a defense mechanism of the body. If there is a bacterial infection, you can become anemic for some time until the infection disappears. So again, it's a defense mechanism of your body. Your body does that to protect itself. But of course, it's a double-edged sword because yes, it will starve the bacteria, but it will also starve your cells, your body from iron and therefore from oxygen, and then you can have anemia. But it is something interesting to know because if you regularly have bacterial infections and you are anemic, your infections can explain why you are anemic. Even if you eat tons of iron-rich foods, if you still have the infection, you will stay anemic. These here are studies that talk about that. I let you pause on the slide if you want to read that. So now, mechanisms of absorption. Iron is stored in the body as ferritin, mainly in the liver, the spleen, the muscle tissue, and the bone marrow. And it is delivered throughout the body by transferrin, a protein in blood that binds to iron. Unlike other minerals, iron levels in the human body are controlled only by absorption. The mechanism of iron excretion is an unregulated process arrived at through loss of sweat, menstruation, shedding of hair and skin cells, and rapid turnover and excretion of enterocytes. Enterocytes are the cells of your small intestine. The absorption of most dietary iron occurs in the duodenum and upper jejunum. To be absorbed, iron must be in the ferrous state or bound by a protein such as heme. The low pH of gastric acid in the duodenum allows a ferric reductase enzyme to convert the insoluble ferric iron to absorbable ferrous ions. Gastric acid production plays a key role in plasma iron homeostasis. When PPIs and proton pump inhibiting drugs are used, iron absorption is greatly reduced. So this is very important to know. If you take anti-acid drugs, you will have trouble absorbing enough iron. Once inside the enterocyte, iron can be stored as ferritin or transported throughout the membrane and into circulation bound to ferroportin. The transmembrane protein ferroportin is the only efflux route of cellular iron and is regulated almost exclusively by hepcidin levels. High levels of iron inflammatory cytokines, and oxygen leads to increased levels of the peptide hormone hepcidin. Okay, so this hormone hepcidin is the hormone that will stop the absorption and the circulation of iron in your body. This will happen mainly in these three cases: if there is enough iron in the body, if there is inflammation in the body, because as we saw before, if there is an infection and therefore inflammation, your body will stop the circulation of iron in order to starve the pathogenic bacteria in your body. And if there's enough oxygen in your body, also the body will raise the hepcidin levels, because if there's enough oxygen, then there's no need to have more iron in the body, because again, that's the main role of iron in the body, it's to transport oxygen. And also something important to know is that you need copper to absorb iron properly. If you are deficient in copper, you cannot absorb iron. You can take as much iron supplements as you want. You can eat as much red meat as you want. If you don't have copper, you cannot absorb that iron. Here is a drawing that explains very well what we just said. Basically, in your food, iron will come in two forms: either heme iron from animal foods, we will see that in details in a few slides, or non-heme iron from plant foods mainly. There are two different pathways for these two types of iron. When it comes as heme iron, it enters the cell of the intestinal of the intestines here through the villi, through heme transporter, and then heme is separated from the molecule of iron by this enzyme, heme oxygenase. Once it is separated, the iron molecule will be stored in the intestinal cell, or it will get out of the cell and then goes into the blood. So it will get out from the cell thanks to ferroportin. It will have to be transformed from ferrous iron into ferric iron, because only ferric iron can circulate in the blood, and then it will circulate in the blood by a plasma transferrin, thanks to transferrin, and then it will feed all your cells in your body, or it can go to the liver and get stored in there in the liver. And as we said, the liver also makes hepcidin, that is a hormone that will stop the circulation of iron. So it will stop the ferroportin gate from releasing the iron molecule from the intestinal cell. And the second pathway for non-heme iron, it will differ only here in the beginning. So when you get non-heme iron, it is in the ferric state, and to enter into the intestinal cell, it must be converted into the ferrous state, and then it can enter the cell through this protein, DMT1, and then it follows the same pathway as we saw before. Here it says something interesting: heme iron, which is ferrous iron present in hemoglobin in the red blood cells and myoglobin in the myocytes, is absorbed 3-fold to 4-fold more efficiently than inorganic ferric iron. Heme iron absorption is relatively independent of the effects of various promoters, inhibitors of iron absorption in the food matrix, except for calcium, but we will see that in details in a few slides. So what are the symptoms of iron deficiency or anemia? You need to know that it is the most common nutritional deficiency worldwide. It affects all ages, but especially children and women, as we will see in more details in a few minutes. Iron deficiency anemia is due to insufficient iron. Okay, so there are different reasons why you can become deficient. We will see that in a few minutes. But the main reason is not enough iron in your food. Without enough iron, the transport of oxygen through the body cannot occur properly. As a result, iron deficiency anemia may leave you tired and short of breath. So these are the two main symptoms, but there are more than that. There's extreme fatigue, weakness, confusion, loss of concentration, pale skin, chest pain, fast heartbeat or shortness of breath, headache, dizziness or lightheadedness, cold hands and feet, or generally sensitivity to cold, inflammation or soreness of your tongue, brittle nails, hair loss, unusual cravings for non-nutritive substances such as ice, dirt, or starch, poor appetite, especially in infants and children with iron deficiency anemia. What are the main causes of iron deficiency? As we just said, it's mainly a low intake of iron in your food. Nearly 1/4 of the world's population is affected by anemia. Another reason why you can become anemic is if you have a condition that degrades the mucosa of the duodenum, such as celiac disease, tropical sprue, Crohn's disease, duodenal cancer, duodenal ulcers, familial adenomatous polyposis. So any disease of the small intestine will be an issue to absorb iron, because iron is absorbed in your small intestine. And generally, I would say if you have IBS or IBD, you can have anemia also, because you have the whole intestinal system that is damaged. If you have hypochlorhydria or achlorhydria, it can also cause iron deficiency, because as we said before, what allows the iron to get absorbed in the small intestine is if there's enough acid coming from your stomach. So if you lack stomach acid, you can become anemic. I have many videos on my channel where I talk about stomach issues, and I talk about hypochlorhydria and achlorhydria, and I explain the causes and the solutions. So I let you go watch these videos if you want to know more. If you have inflammatory states, you can become anemic, because as we said, then the body, if you have like chronic infection, acute infection or chronic infection, your body will choose to store the iron rather than to let it circulate. If you have any kind of hemorrhage, most commonly through trauma or gastrointestinal lesions. Okay, so if you have ulcers anywhere in your digestive tract, you lose blood every day, and therefore you can become anemic. If you take drugs, as we said before, such as antacids, antihistamines, yes, because antihistamines stop the production of acidity in your stomach. Or if you take antibiotics, because it will destroy your gut lining. So if you take these drugs, you can become deficient in iron. And also if you take supplements, man-made minerals, such as calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium salts. So here it says, even the calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium salts contained in iron-containing multivitamins, multivitamin pills, impair absorption of elemental iron. So this is a problem I talk about in many of my videos. I also wrote an article to explain that isolated vitamins and minerals create lots of imbalances in your body, and it's not a good idea to get your nutrients from pills. You need to get your nutrients from food only. I will put the links of my article and the videos where I talk about that in the comments under this video if you want to know more. And here it also says that milk and soft drinks can cause iron deficiency. So regarding milk, we will talk about that in a few minutes also. And copper deficiency, as I said before. Membrane iron transport depends absolutely upon copper transport. Studies on copper deficient swine show coexisting iron deficiency unresponsive to iron therapy. You need copper to be able to absorb iron. And another cause of iron deficiency is if you have heavy metal toxicity. Studies suggest that several heavy metals share the iron intestinal absorption pathway. These include lead, manganese, cobalt, and zinc. Enhanced iron absorption induced by iron deficiency also augments the uptake of these elements. Iron deficiency often coexists with lead intoxication. Individuals who are severely iron deficient can absorb up to 7 times more lead. Groups at risk, basically it's pregnant women, they need more iron because they need to feed themselves plus the baby. Menstruating women because they lose blood, of course. Children because they need more iron to be able to grow properly. Older people because generally of poor nutrition and chronic inflammatory diseases. Vegetarians because they only absorb non-heme iron that is less absorbable than heme iron. Endurance athletes because they can have trace amounts of gastrointestinal bleeding. And people with chronic kidney failure on dialysis. What are the RDA for iron? For adults from 19 to 50 years, it's 8 milligrams daily for men, 18 milligrams for women, 27 milligrams for pregnancy, and 9 milligrams for lactation. So it's very important to understand that women actually need more iron than men, more than 2 times more iron than men. So generally, we see women avoiding red meat and only eating lean white meat such as chicken or turkey. But really, it should be the opposite. And we see men eating lots of red meat, but really, it's the women who need much more iron than men. So women should understand that they need to eat iron-rich foods every day. The richest foods in iron is meat and especially red meat. So women need to start eating more red meat. It's very important. So what are the symptoms of iron toxicity? So toxicity is actually rare because the body regulates iron absorption and will absorb less if iron stores are adequate. Excessive iron occurs most often from taking high dosage supplements when not needed or from having a genetic condition that stores too much iron. So here again, we talk about the problem of supplementing with pills for your nutrients. It's much safer to get your nutrients from food rather than from man-made supplements. Iron toxicity is much rarer than iron deficiency. A US organization offering free testing on the east coast of the USA has found there are 5 individuals who have low iron levels for every 1 individual with high iron levels. Infants and young children are unable to reduce absorption when high amounts of iron are ingested, so they are highly susceptible to iron poisoning. Consumption of adult iron supplements has been the most common form of infant poisoning in the USA. And there is this disease, hereditary hemochromatosis, that is a genetical disease that makes the body retain iron and absorb too much iron. So these people who have this disease can have iron toxicity, but it's something quite rare. It's 1 for 300 or 400 people. And this disease damages the heart, the liver, and the endocrine organs. Also, you can have symptoms of iron toxicity if you drink too much alcohol. Regular and or excessive consumption of alcohol predisposes to iron overload. So what are the common signs? Constipation, upset stomach, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain. What are the maximum daily intake? 45 milligrams daily for adults, and for younger people 40 milligrams daily. So what are the foods rich in heme iron? Well, it's mainly animal foods, especially red meat, but also poultry and seafood. So heme iron is the most easily absorbable form. It's absorbable from 15% to 35% and contributes to 10% or more of our total absorbed iron. Approximately half of the iron in meat, fish, and poultry is heme iron. And fish has a lower content of both heme and non-heme iron compared to mammalian meat and poultry meat. Here I have put a link if you want to see more details about different foods that are rich in iron. So here it is. you can see different lists of different foods, animal foods and plant foods rich in iron. And the richest food in iron, no surprise here, is liver. Pork liver, veal liver, beef liver. So if you are anemic, eat liver and it will solve your problems. What inhibits heme iron absorption? Relatively few dietary factors impact on heme iron absorption. Heme iron is converted to non-heme iron if meat is cooked for a long period of time at a too high temperature. So this is important to know. If you cook your meat too much, the heme iron will convert into non-heme iron that is less absorbable. So if you want more iron, you need to eat your meat raw or barely cooked. One thing that inhibits heme iron absorption is calcium, but especially calcium from supplements. It's not so much a problem of calcium in natural foods. It's if you take a calcium supplement with a meal rich in heme iron, it can inhibit the absorption. If you have lead toxicity, as we said before, and also some plant proteins such as soy, peas, lentils, and gliadin can inhibit heme iron absorption, but this is taken from a study that was studying the absorption of isolated heme iron. So it might not be the same results with real heme iron in the food matrix. So basically what inhibits heme iron absorption in general in your life, it will be if you take calcium supplement and if you have lead toxicity. What enhances heme iron absorption? Well, it's mainly anemia and hypoxia. Anemia, because as we said, the body will make iron more absorbable if you have anemia. Any type of iron, heme iron, but also non-heme iron. And if you have hypoxia, that is not enough oxygen in your body, here again, your body will do everything it needs to get more iron because you need iron to transport oxygen in the body. And of course, animal protein and hemoglobin. So I wrote that here because it was in some studies, but of course, in everyday life, heme iron comes from animal protein and hemoglobin. But in these studies, they were again studying isolated heme iron. And of course, isolated heme iron was better absorbed in the presence of animal protein and hemoglobin. And also in a study, they found that purified zein protein enhances heme iron absorption, but again, it was isolated heme iron. What are the foods rich in non-heme iron? It's mainly vegetables, but not only. You have lots of non-heme iron also in animal foods. You have non-heme iron in meat, fish, and poultry. It's about half and half. You have half heme iron in meat, fish, and poultry, and half non-heme iron. You have heme iron also in leafy green vegetables, in fortified foods, in eggs. There's not much iron in eggs. In whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, chocolate, and potatoes with skin. But actually, all these plant foods also have anti-nutrients that will inhibit the absorption of iron in the body. And that's why also the bioavailability for iron is lower than for heme iron. It's only 2 to 20%. The absorption rate is 2 to 20%. So what inhibits non-heme iron absorption? Phytates that you can find in grains, in nuts and seeds mainly, but also in grains and nuts and seeds mainly. You have polyphenols also in lots of plant foods, such as vegetables and fruits. You know, polyphenols are what gives the nice colors, the different colors to the different plant foods: orange, red, purple. So polyphenols inhibit non-heme iron absorption. Bran fiber, calcium, particularly from supplements, but also casein and whey protein. But we will talk about that in a few moments. Eggs, the whites and the yolks can inhibit non-heme iron absorption. Soy protein and other plant proteins oxalic acid with a question mark here, because we will see in the next slide that it's actually not such a problem. Lead toxicity, and supplemental doses, so artificial doses, not in food, of organic elements such as zinc, manganese, and copper. They compete with non-heme iron for transport into the intestinal cell. Magnesium and phosphorus salts can also cause this problem in supplements. So regarding oxalates and non-heme iron absorption, actually in this study, they actually found out that it's not such of a problem. Oxalates are not so much a problem for iron absorption. And here are several lists of different things that inhibits non-heme iron absorption. I let you pause on the slide if you want more details. What enhances non-heme iron absorption? Well, it's mainly vitamin C and meat. Vitamin C and heme iron taken at the same meal can improve the absorption of non-heme iron. Absorption of non-heme iron is markedly influenced by the levels of iron stores and by concomitantly consumed dietary components. Enhancing factors such as ascorbic acid and meat, fish, poultry may increase non-heme iron bioavailability fourfold. Okay, so here I've put a list. So vitamin C, lactic fermentation of vegetables, double iron absorption. Alcohol, because it stimulates iron uptake by inhibition of hepcidin expression, and also it induces stimulation of gastric acid production. Meat increases non-heme iron absorption. Citrate, vitamin A, carotenoids, gastric acid, anemia, hypoxia, and cooking acidic vegetables in non-enameled cast iron pots. So you will absorb some of the iron of your pots if you cook with these pots. And here again, non-heme iron absorption. So as I said, like phytates can inhibit non-heme iron absorption, but if you add to the same meal, so to a meal that has phytates in the different foods, and you also have natural vitamin C, at least 30 milligrams of vitamin C, you will absorb iron in the meal. If you have tannic acid, you need 50 milligrams of vitamin C to be able to absorb the iron in the meal. And here, small amounts of meat, at least 50 grams, significantly increase non-heme iron absorption from a phytate-rich meal low in vitamin C. What about milk and iron absorption? Because in many articles and in many studies, we can see that calcium and dairy products in general inhibit iron absorption. So again, it's actually because in many studies, they study isolated iron together with isolated calcium or isolated casein or isolated whey protein. But actually, when it's in food, in a real meal, it doesn't actually inhibit iron absorption. In this study, that's what it says here. These results suggest that under real life conditions, increasing the amount of dairy products probably has no effect upon iron absorption in meals containing appreciable amounts of dairy products. And in this study here, it talks about iron deficiency in infants and young children if they drink lots of cow milk, because cow milk is very low in iron, and especially if it's, and I think that's the type of cow's milk that they used in this study, pasteurized or UHT milk, that is like completely dead milk with no enzymes, with no heme iron left. So of course, if you use this type of milk, it will be a problem because the milk has no iron virtually. So here it's more, in this study, it talks more about that if most of your calories comes from cow's milk, that is very low in iron, instead of eating red meat, for example, of course you will have chances to become deficient in iron. And what enhances non-heme iron absorption, fermentation, as I said before. So here I just wanted to put more details, so I let you pause on this slide if you want more details. These are extracts from the different studies that I listed in the beginning of the video. And here again, it talks about the absorption of non-heme iron in the presence of vitamin C and meat. Here, the results revealed that inclusion of 200 grams of chicken, 135 grams of salad, and 120 grams of orange juice to the basic meals of rice or chapati with either dal or sag. These are meals in India based on legumes and stuff like that. Enhanced iron bioaccessibility by 1.6-fold to 5-fold. That's huge. That's with chicken. Up to 5-fold. 4.2 to 28.9% with salad, and 4.7 to 10.7% with orange juice. So the most efficient is with meat. Up to 5-fold. Okay. And yeah, that's it for today. I hope this video helped you understand the mechanism of absorption of iron. I have a course to heal your gut naturally. I put the link under this video. Of course, you need to heal your gut if you want to be able to absorb iron properly. So the link will be under the video in the description box and also in the comments. If you have any question or if you want to comment about this video, please feel free to leave a comment under the video. I see you in the next video. Bye bye.